Till now, in this module, we are working with different text-based input controls with buttons and checkboxes and radio buttons. So Bootstrap provides us functionality to extend the behavior of all input control by grouping or input control with other text or buttons. We can place other text or button with input control either before or after or on both sides of the text based input control. So for this, Bootstrap provide us class input group. We can use this class input group with two other classes. We can either choose input group add-on to add text, or we can choose class input group button to add button with text based input control. So let's see in demo application. So here I am inside project responsive website demo in form.html. So now let's change our control for email address. So now replace this normal text box for email with the input group. So for that, let's add a div with the class input group, and inside this input group div, let's move our text box control, and after this text box I want to display a domain name for the email address. So now suppose we have requirement that we only want users to enter a email address with the specific domain. So for that particular reason I want to restrict users with the specific domain. So let's add a span element with the class input group add-on and provide the text @ modernpathshala.com. So now we have added a input group by grouping two elements, one input and another span. So let's save the changes and refresh our page. So now we can see that we have input group control for the email address. Now user can only insert the first part of the email, and suffix is already defined in the add-on control. So we can add these add-on either side of the control or in the prefix part or on the suffix part. So let's add a Twitter handler and provide a @add-on at the beginning of the control. So let's copy this form group element and paste it one more time to create a Twitter handler. Now let's change this email to Twitter. Now let's move this span prior to the text box, as I want it to display before the control. Change this text @modernpathshala to just because Twitter handler start with the @ sign, and let's change this ID to Twitter and replace the placeholder text with Twitter. So now let's save changes and refresh our page. So now we have added a add-on at the beginning of the control. Similarly, we can add these add-on on both sides of the control. One thing we have to notice that input group are different from the form group. Form group provides grouping to two different elements for the optimal spacing, and input group element combines two inputs. So now let's add input group with the button control. So here on top of the page inside the navbar we have two controls, one for the text box to insert the search text and submit button to search the inserted text. So let's change this with using input group. So here inside the navbar section, inside navbar form subsection, let's change input type text with input group. So for that, let's create a div with class input group, and inside this div let's place this text box, and after text box I want to display a button control. So let's add a span element with the class input group button, and inside this span let's create a button element with the class btn, btn success and btn small. And let's remove this submit button, and we no longer need this. Let's also change the class form group to form group sm to create a small group and reduce the size of control. So inside this input group I have a input type text control, and I have a button element. Let's provide a value go to this button control, and let's save the changes and refresh all page. So we have replaced our text box and submit button with the input group element.